Welcome to Access, thanks to Crypto.com. Matthew Lloyd and Damian Barrett taking a look at round 7, where the big storyline was Harry McKay and the Carlton Football Club. We'll get to that in a moment. What else took your fancy out of the round of action, Lauder?
Dame, I want to talk about what has just happened to the Sydney Swans. Why have they fallen away so badly? And also, Paul Curtis, want to discuss that with you and how we've got to this point.
Big topics there. There's Prickly Ross, he's returned. Max Gawn at Melbourne, unbelievable, Lordo. And the Jason Horne-Francis. You and I have got different issues and views on that. We'll thrash through that again. Now, I love what happened at the MCG with Carlton beating Geelong just to liven up this competition. I love the Harry McKay storyline, but it was the Blues pressure, Lordo, that gave some validation to what they'd done previous 2 weeks.
Yeah, they beat Geelong up really yesterday, so that's their biggest scalp of the year. They'd beaten West Coast, they'd beaten North Melbourne, and they got confidence out of that, but now they franked it by beating a top 4 side in Geelong. And this is a staple of any team's game, and that's pressure and your intent, and just the panic that set in at Geelong's game. We haven't seen them fumble and bumble around like this, but it's all due to Carlton's pressure. And the addition to Carlton's game is they smash them on the inside, which we've always known they can do, but then they beat them up on the outside as well, which is something you don't see with Carlton a lot.
That is. Now, of the 3 matches they've now won, West Coast and North Melbourne are factored into it. But we take a look at the numbers, Lordo, and they're quite stark from what they dished up in the first 4 rounds of the season. And it's a nice picture that's emerging from the Blues in the past 3 weeks.
It is. And look at the uncontested possession. So the marks, so they're taking more uncontested marks, uncontested possessions, and it's leading to scores. They've gone from 8 goals on average to 18. Yes, they did kick a huge score last week, but they've been sensational. They've kicked 17, 24 and 14 goals in the last 3 weeks, which is a big turnaround.
I love this storyline, the Harry McKay storyline, the trauma that he's been through personally, physically, and to stand up from go to woe in this game. He kicked 3 goals, Lordo. One of them was a crucial goal in the last quarter. But as we watch what he did in this game, it was, to me, Lordo, what he did down the line late when they needed that face-saving, match-saving mark down the line when the game got tight.
Yeah, 19 disposals, 3 goals, Damian. So that's an unbelievable game for a key forward. But you're spot on. What he did late for that team, just his aerial skills, his marking. They didn't have an answer for Harry, and this was a big goal at a crucial time. Geelong were coming late in that last quarter, dominating the clearances, Geelong were, and that put an end to it and a big win for the Blues.
And the way he spoke about it post-match, the personal issues that saw him miss 3 weeks of footy, returning and being knocked out inside a half of football upon return, the facial fractures that we didn't know about until post-match yesterday when he addressed it. It's already one of the great storylines, what happened yesterday in isolation.
Yeah, it is. And he worked really well with Curnow. Normally they jump on top of each other. That didn't happen yesterday. But another man who's had his own demons is Nick Haynes. And he was a star. He was one of the best intercept players in the game for the GWS Giants. And he just hasn't been that. He hasn't been able to get a game.
And it wasn't a good start to his Carlton career, was it?
No. And I didn't think he had this game in him. But just want to look at the Nick Haynes of old return to the MCG yesterday. And it was just his positioning. So his ability to read the players back to what made him. He was the Tom Stewart 5-6 years ago, and they couldn't get the ball past him. He was a wonderful player. It's why he became $1 million player. He had Brad Close rattled. Brad Close, I haven't seen play such a poor game of AFL football because of Nick Haynes and his ability to read the ball in the air, and whether it's to spoil or to mark the footy. This was amazing.
Dempsey's in form there, how he's out playing there.
And he took 4 intercept marks in a quarter, and then he's reading the play just to intercept and help teammates and aerial with the ball.
And his ball use was good too, because he was butchering it early in the season, it must be said, as he was trying to find his way at a new club.
Yeah, he was fumbling and bumbling and just hacking the ball forward. But this was the other big storyline, Harry McKay and also this man, Nick Haynes.
Yeah. So you like what you see. Is it going to stack up against better teams for the remainder of the year now, the Blues?
Oh, I still need to see more. So I think that was a great win. They're 3 in a row, but they're still chasing their tail after losing their first 4 games of the season.
Do you need to see more on Gold Coast? And before you answer that, they had a really good win against the Sydney Swans. It was an even tussle for a while, but they blew the Swans away in the second half. 12 unanswered goals. It all started in the third quarter.
It did, Damo, and that was just an unbelievable response here from the GWS Giants. He would have been so concerned about what he saw. They were getting belted up, but it all turned around in the midfield. So Matty Rowell was having one of his worst games he's ever had at AFL football in that first half. He got his hands on the ball, the usual suspects around. And as I just touched on earlier, you were right, Damo, to jump on the Suns because they had a bad game last week, but across now 7 weeks, I think their form is good enough to stack up.
Are we talking top 4? Good enough?
Well, Yeah, at least top 6, and it's there for them to finish top 4. So I think, everyone's entitled to have a bad game, which they had last week. Maybe thought it would just happen, but they obliterated this Swans team after half.
And as we look at what they did to one of the grand finalists of last year, pushing forward to Sunday night, Lordo, the clash against the other grand finalist of last year, the Brisbane Lions, this is a massive game of football about to unfold.
Oh, one of the games of the season. And this is the turnaround in the game. And this is a lot of maturity by the Gold Coast Suns after what happened last week, losing a game. So you can see they got belted at clearance 12-6 by the Swans. So inside 50, 17-8. They're 4 goals down. The second quarter was no better, but the third quarter to come out and belt them at clearance 15-3, inside 50s 18-5, and just kick 12 goals in a row in this game of football was a big win for them.
And 2 weeks ago, they kicked 11 of the last 13 against North Melbourne. They can seriously pile on the goals when they're in a moment of bother.
Yeah, and then to get 4 goals out of Humphrey, which was huge, so one of his better games, and King just goes from strength to strength with another 5.
The Access Boardroom agenda, Lordo, today out of round 7 is the MRO, the Match Review Office of the AFL headquarters. We've got them square in the gun today. It's a system, Lordo, which I've been bemoaning now for a number of years. I feel it's now irreparably broken, given that the Paul Curtis tackle on Josh Sin, the way the Match Review Office was able to view this was either 0 weeks, like 0 weeks for that tackle, or 3 weeks. There was no nuance in the assessment because of the severity of the damage done to Josh Sin. Now, just to sign off on this, he was concussed, he was taken out of the game, but the Match Review Office could either give it 0 or 3. There was no nuance to say it was 1 or 2. It will go to the tribunal. North Melbourne, in my eyes, has to. It's obliged to defend that on Paul Curtis's behalf. It's obliged, I feel, to defend it on behalf of the entire competition because accidents occur in football and there was nothing that I saw that was egregiously wrong with what he did in that particular tackle.
Yeah, I'm with you, Damo, because momentum pushed him forward in the tackle, so there was no malice to it, there was no double action. So I'm big on the double action being suspended, but it was just his momentum and his weight falling into Sin. So I hope even if he gets a week, you know, but again, it's all
it's based on the concussion.
Yeah, not the concussion point. Yeah.
And I say that because Nick Watson, a smaller man, tackled a bigger man in Harley Reid yesterday. I defy anyone to say this is dramatically different to what Curtis did on Sin. Now, the difference, obviously, is the outcome. There's no concussion or HIA required on Harley Reid. But that's just a luck component to that action. So the game is a brutal game, Lordo. It's sold and celebrated and promoted as a contest. And that was a footy action to me. And unfortunately, sometimes that happens in the game.
Injuries will happen, I'm with you. So not every concussion needs to be a suspension. I hope Paul Curtis plays next week, but I doubt he will.
Yeah. Coach speak out around 7. It's Ross Lyon, Lordo. We saw a return to the bristly, prickly, agitated Ross. We saw him addressing his players during the first quarter. This is taken from the actual stadium itself. He then had a long and, I'd say, semi-vicious spray at his players at quarter time. What are you observing here?
Well, you've only got 1 or 2 of those a year. So you can't be... the quarter time vision was unbelievable. I've never seen such a long spray to a player in the modern game. It doesn't happen very often that coaches still give sprays. So Ross wouldn't want to be doing that next week, for example, because if you just keep doing it, it loses its effect. So he'd be worried that the way they're losing. There's losses, and his team's losing really, really badly at the moment. It's through their midfield. They just got no depth in there whatsoever.
Yeah, and one of the midfielders. Now, he's in his 16th game, Hugo Garcia. He subbed him out halfway through the second quarter. That's his right, obviously, Lotto, as a coach to trigger that move during the match so quickly. It's unusual. He tried to explain it post-match.
I live in the world of action, right? So you'd sit there and go, why don't they pull the sub? I pulled the sub, tried to get something done. Not a spray, but yeah, I was animated because it was like...
Most animated thing.
Yeah, since I've been back at the club. Yeah, but it's not personal. It was like first possession, 12-3 or 12-4 and clearances at 3-12. How about show some fortitude, hang on the ball and get it going our way? We'll get a restart.
Now, my take on some of this post-match, Lotto, is that Ross will be happy that we and others in the media will be talking about this aspect of that game. Because if we're doing that, we're not talking about how badly his team is now performing. They've lost their last 3 matches. They've conceded 110 points or more in each of those 3 matches. GWS, Western Bulldogs and Brisbane Lions. And I'm not sure there's much talent on that list.
No, and that's where I made the point about the coning last week or the week before, that don't go all in on one player because they've got deeper problems than that.
Yep. Collingwood seemed to have problems after opening round, but not in the 6 matches since. Collingwood again got the job done against Essendon on Anzac Day. Lloyd, you wanted to focus on initially the personnel and then the system, and the combination is just beautiful. The personnel first.
Yeah, they were challenged heavily in the third quarter, and some of their instinctive play is huge. So you just see the knock-ons. So that was Bobby Hill coming up and knocking over the top to Dacos, and then you have the luxury of just throwing to go in.
So Hill to Dacos to go in. Yeah.
And then this is another one, Pendlebury tapping it back.
And this guy stepped up,
this bloke. Yeah, there's people going, where's Ed Allen? Gone. But this is because Noah Long's come through and he's become the player he was. So it was just their experience and their depth of numbers through that midfield which overall.
And then their system, which actually came into play when the communications were lost between the coach and the bench. It doesn't matter and doesn't worry Collingwood because they are so well drilled, even when the Essendon's bringing the ball forward without any great pressure, but they're set up so well.
Yeah, once the Bombers turned the footy over, Collingwood just punished them. So in the end, they had 16 more entries, 10 more scoring shots. It was a domination. It deserved to be 41 points, but once Kako put them in front in the third quarter, you thought, are they a chance here? Didn't worry Collingwood. Across the game, they take some beating. And what a 6 weeks it's been since they lost to the Giants.
So they just back their system, do they?
They do, and they trust that. They weren't worried about the Bombers. They had some good moments. You know, Durham kicked some freak goals, but they felt from a system perspective, they had the game under control. And you just saw from midway through the third quarter, it was all Collingwood. And I think Brisbane have the most talent, but I think Collingwood are the biggest threat to them as we stand here right now. Yeah.
2023 all over again.
I think so. And they're the top two sides on the ladder now.
Yep. Max Gawn's had a brilliant 2 weeks of footy, Lordo. Did it the previous week against Fremantle and was a clear best of field again against Richmond. We raise it today, though. It's been a good turnaround from the Demons, it must be said. A really courageous turnaround after a 0-5 start. But are they too reliant still?
Yeah, it's quite funny because there's been a lot of ruckmen that have come and gone at Melbourne just because you don't want to be behind Max Gawn because he's that good. He's so durable, he's a workhorse, and he wins the medal, and he didn't even play the last 12, 13 minutes. But the problem was Richmond kicked 4 goals in the time he went off the ground. So, you know, they did the right thing resting him, but poor Tom Fullerton, I don't say poor, he's just unfortunately not up to it, and he's the number 2 ruckman at the club. So there's no doubt, I think no team relies more on a player than Melbourne do with Max Gawn.
He's got the official captaincy status at Melbourne. Andrew Brayshaw doesn't have that at the Dockers, but you want to make him the focus today of the Crypto.com bold call.
I do, Damo, because he was the Anzac medalist also on Friday night in the game in Fremantle and Adelaide, and I say that Andrew Brayshaw would captain at least 10 clubs, but he may never captain his club, Fremantle, because of maybe Caleb.
And you think that guy on screen there who handballed it just to him then, Caleb Sarong?
He may be the next captain. And
Alex Pearce is doing a good job too, by the way.
As well, but I just say, I know Andrew well because I've been fortunate enough to see him at lower levels, and he's was one of the more mature players I've ever seen. He's a heart and soul player. He's tough on the inside. He's fantastic on the outside. And he's a player that is as loyal and as honest and as trustworthy as you'll get. And as I said, I won't name him here, but I could name 10 captains that are captaining other clubs that I'd have Brayshaw before him. So that's my bold call. He may not captain his own club, but he'd be amazing captaining so many others.
Yep. What about the captaincy work of Connor Rozee here? Well, I raise that because of the issue with Jason Horne-Francis, his teammate at Port Adelaide, and the fracas that it was in the game against North Melbourne. Now, he was probably the second best player on the ground, and that man who's now trying to control him, Zach Butters, who is a leader of the footy club as well. And the exchange between Ken and Jason Horne-Francis at three-quarter time and the involvement of those other leaders, Alir on screen as well, as part of this discussion. I love it, Lordo. I know you've got different views, but I just take the view that Ken Hinkley knows that man, Jason Horne-Francis, as well as he knows himself. He knows he's going to get some bad with a lot of good. And the good is more important. He was either best or second best on ground in a game that had to be won. They've got 3 in a row now, the Power. And he, Jason Horne-Francis, despite having that moment, has been as crucial to that turnaround as anyone.
Yeah, I thought they handled themselves unbelievably. So Ken and Rozee and Butters, they could not have handled that situation any better. I just find that, you know, putting my coach's hat on, and I'm at a much lower level, what a distraction it is when you have somebody whose body language and the way they are feeling, you know about it. I say don't go above the team. It's about the team, not you. And I just find I just hate emotional players who let the whole world know how they're feeling, because it's all good and well and you get away with a win. but it becomes tiresome and you're draining and you spend so much time on one player and not the rest.
But do you spend a lot of the week and even that match winding him up to the point where he's on the threshold and then sometimes he goes over it, knowing you're still getting a good performance? Because he was best on ground.
Yeah. As I said, I love him as a player. He's an outstanding player and he's just got a bit of growing up to do.
Okay. Zorko and Fagan, I just want to throw this in too, Lloyd, because this is an experienced player, a man who was once captain of the footy club, who's now 36 years of age. This was last week. It's not this week gone. They were losing to Collingwood, but he had the exchange with his coach, Chris Fagan. What's the difference?
I don't like it either.
Yeah.
Chris is still talking. And he's just turned his back on him. So,
but we walked past that.
I don't like it. I know I didn't speak about it last week, but that's no better to me. When your coach is talking to you, listen to him, acknowledge him. Don't walk and turn your back on him.
Well, there's a particular learning, Lordo Strong. What else did you learn out of round 7, Lotto? Because we do like to take a look at what else happened.
Yeah, we do. Jack Gunston, I must admit, I've said a number of times, I'm not sure he should still be on the Hawthorn list, and he has wound back the clock and he's become their best forward, so well done to him. Eric Hipwood, hip hip hooray. Like, what about his form turnaround? More balls going through him. He's a confidence player. No Danaher, he's holding up his end of the bargain really well. And same old North Melbourne. Yes, you were more competitive, but you're 5 goals down at quarter time after being belted by Carlton, so it was a horror start against the Crows. What
do you make of the Giants midfield order? It's lost its spark. It only managed 34 points as a team against Adelaide the previous week and was blown away against the Bulldogs.
Have names on paper, but they are not delivering and were beaten up by a Western Bulldogs midfield.
Would you make a call at selection?
Well, I'm not sure which one it would be, but he's got to look at the mix he's got in there.
Tim English for the Bulldogs, Lord, maybe not quite all-Australian as he once was in his life, but it's not far off it at the moment. I think he's having a good season.
Yeah, he belted Briggs.
There's a real mess unfolding with Oscar Allen, the co-captain at West Coast. And the Crows, massive game against Carlton on the weekend coming up. I will need to see them win that game to be convinced of their
they've only beaten the Giants, and we don't know how good that win is with the way they're going.
Now, we introduced the Gauntlet on afl.com.au last week. Pick a team each week, Lotto. Your team wins, you stay in. Now, I'm doing what you did last week. I'm taking Hawthorn to beat Richmond. You took them yesterday to beat West Coast. So I'm taking the soft option, but I can see what you're doing. You're taking Melbourne to beat
I'm just
West
going
Coast.
Whoever West Coast plays, because I don't know when they're going to win a game of football. So it's a day. They're on the road, Melbourne, but Gawn, Petrarca, Oliver, Viney, surely they can't lose that one.
I think you're taking the soft option. Thanks for watching Access. We'll be back next week to wrap up round 8.